Who wants to take their masks off, they're free to do so. Anybody who wants to leave them on, feel free to do that too. Just want you to be comfortable. Have the reading of the Sunshine Law, please.
Notice of this meeting was published in accordance with the Open Public Meetings Act.
Okay, there will be no new business after 11 p.m. tonight. May I have a roll call, please?
Mayor Gilmore? Here. Mr. McLaughlin?
Yes.
Mr. McKay?
Here.
Mr. Kochi?
Here.
Mrs. Baggio? Here. Mrs. Kelly? Absent. Mrs. Tyndall?
Here.
Ms. Cosco?
Here.
Mr. Crowpfeiffer?
Here.
Mr. Bradley?
Here.
Mr. Silk? Absent. Ms. Conguglio? Absent. And Mr. Murphy?
He's here.
Mr. Murphy.
Do we have a quorum?
Yes.
Okay. The first item of new business is we'll call it the Mount Holly Bypass Redevelopment Plan. And I know Mr. Taylor is going to do a nice presentation for us on this, but I would like to just mention something. If you all remember a couple of meetings ago, I said that I didn't particularly like the idea that this stuff gets dumped on us on a Friday and we have to make decisions on Wednesdays. But this is not one of those issues, because for those of you that were on the board before, this booklet looks like the one that you have right now, but it's not. This is the one from October. We did see this, and this whole process, this whole item, and Mr. Taylor, correct me if I'm wrong, it's part of an ongoing process. When we're probably, what are we, about step 5 now, maybe? Out of 10 or something like that?
Yep.
So we're going to be seeing this a couple of more times. I would like to specifically reference one thing so that if you all could just glance at it. I'm not trying to take anything away from what you're going to do. I just want to place the emphasis on what we're doing here.
Sure.
If you all turn in your book to page 12, there are 6 bullets in there, and they talk about, actually, if you go back, compare it to the thing we did in October, a lot of progress has been made, and it's all efforts of Mr. Taylor, and I think several other people have been involved in it too. We had a special meeting, which I did attend, but we're correcting a lot of things that are in that area, and it's all with the cooperation of the property owners over there. They're all working together, so I think we're going to have a nice project over there. So having said that, Mr. Taylor, would you please give us the presentation? Thank you.
I would be happy to, Mr. Chairman and board members, good evening. What we have here tonight, as Chairman indicated, is about step 5 of about 10 steps. Now, we've had probably 10 meetings within the town and with potential landowners between the last step, number 4, and this step, number 5, just to get to this point. This is for the members of the public and new board members, and to bring everybody up to speed. This is a handful of properties located at the, I got to make sure mine's off too. So back in May of 2020, the Township Committee asked the Joint Land Use Board to undertake an investigation to determine whether or not 12 properties located at the northeast corner of the Mount Holly bypass on Route 38 met the statutory criteria to be considered an area in need of redevelopment under the local redevelopment and housing law. On October 7th, the Joint Land Use Board reviewed that report and concurred with the findings of our recommendations that several of those statutory criteria were in fact met and that the properties did qualify. On October 13th, the Township Committee designated the area as an area in need of redevelopment without condemnation. And that's an important distinction, both from a noticing standpoint and just an implementation standpoint. Involvement within any development within the designated redevelopment area is completely voluntary on the part of any landowners. There will be and cannot be any condemnation exercised or eminent domain exercised by the municipality because they chose to go that route of having this be a redevelopment area without condemnation. So since we've had those 3 public meetings, we now have a designated redevelopment area. I will point out some of those properties and refresh some of your memory about some of those parcels. And I'm referring actually to the map from the preliminary investigation hearing October 7th. The parcels are identified both on a tax map and an aerial map exhibit. It basically includes and for reference, on the bottom here is Route 38, the Mount Holly bypass, the Lumberton Township border. We have the Lawrence Boulevard jug handle with a property known as the Hessert parcel. The classic Nissan properties are located to the eastern part. To the rear is the Atlantic Woods property, wood treatment facility, and the Americycle parcels are located along the bypass. In the interior, there is a strip center with a warehouse building behind and a fence company in the middle. As you may recall, yes.
Just to interject, for those of you that can't see all that over there, that's good. Page 6 and 7 are those 2 maps in your booklet.
Right, and that was just about to say that. So versions of this map are included on page 6 and 7 that identify that redevelopment area. So this next step, and actually to take one step back, as you may recall, some of the discussion that we had during that preliminary investigation is we have a number of issues and sort of problems associated with some of the properties out there. The classic Nissan properties are actually located, and those are parcels F and G. They are located on opposite sides of a stem of property that is actually the access road for the Atlantic Wood property to the rear. That actually creates a disconnect, and while there had been some informal easement between the property owners years ago, there was nothing formal. That was creating a functional disconnect between those 2 properties that would actually require someone technically to come out, use multiple jug handle maneuvers on Route 38 to get from one parcel to the other. The second is the severely acute angle for trucks exiting the Atlantic Wood site onto Route 38 westbound was such that it was difficult for tractor trailers to do. They had to actually occupy both travel lanes, go into the shoulder and almost to the center median barrier, the Jersey barrier, to make that turn, which is not a DOT compliant. It's just been that way forever, but it's not a safe truck maneuver. The Hessert property significantly impacted by frontage on the DOT jug handle. There have been numerous proposals and approvals on that property historically, but the relatively small size of that property in comparison to the DOT jug handle frontage and the DOT construction costs for improvements rendered that parcel very unlikely to be developed on its own. So through redevelopment, what we've been able to do is kind of structure a plan to eliminate some of these problems. We also noted during the redevelopment investigation that preliminary investigations done on the part of the property owner had identified several exceedances within the soil levels of certain contaminants on the Atlantic Woods property. If the property continued to just operate on its own, those exceedances would just continue. By approaching this under the local redevelopment and housing law and being able to do this redevelopment plan, it allows the municipality to work with those landowners to come up with a plan And the plan that you have before us is one that we think is a real win-win-win-win. When this all first started happening about a year and a half ago, we sort of spoke internally to say, how great would it be if we could get the Nissan properties consolidated, get this driveway to be relocated, get Hessert and this all to function as one unit and improve the traffic circulation, eliminate this bad truck access that requires that awkward movement out onto there, get the Atlantic Wood sites cleaned up and get that a productive industrial use on that property. And the plan that you have before you actually does that. The landowners have cooperated. This is a redevelopment plan that actually encompasses 5 of the lots within the redevelopment area, and it sets up a framework for development of those. So what we're here for tonight is a referral. This redevelopment plan sets forth permitted uses, bulk standards, and design standards for the site layout, the improvements on those properties, and more particularly the industrial site. It also has a number of design standards in terms of lighting, architecture, et cetera. This will become a mini master plan / zoning ordinance for these properties to effectuate that development that's shown on those plans. What we're here for tonight is, like any other land use ordinance, as board members know, but for members of the public, because this impacts the land development ordinances, it has to be referred here for master plan consistency. The next step after our hearing tonight, and I'll talk about the master plan in a second, on February 16th will be the actual public hearing for adoption of the redevelopment plan by ordinance at the Township Committee meeting. So that's where probably a slightly lengthier presentation will be given, and we would anticipate some more question and answer during that hearing. Once this plan is adopted, and this gets back to the chairman's introductory comments, all of the properties that are part of this redevelopment plan still have to come back to the Joint Land Use Board for subdivision and or site plan approval in the normal course of any development application consistent with the New Jersey Municipal Land Use Law and Hainesport Township ordinances. So this really is a multi-prong approach. As the chairman indicated, this started well over a year ago, and we're now making headway on that progress. To touch a little bit on the master plan, and we discussed it at greater length in the narrative in here. The simple part of this is our master plans have talked for decades about capitalizing on the Route 38 corridor to stimulate investment and growth along that corridor. It has also talked about improving vacant and underutilized sites, and where appropriate, utilizing redevelopment to do that. We believe that this plan, as envisioned from a year ago up to what has been shown before you, not only is consistent, but actually effectuates those recommendations of the master plan as presented for several decades here in the township. So that really is the purpose of tonight's meeting, and I know Mr. Kingsbury can elaborate on that, is just a determination of whether the redevelopment plan is consistent with the provisions of the master plan and whether there are any recommendations of the Joint Land Use Board on the plan itself. Believe it or not, that was the short version.
Could you elaborate a little bit on the, I'll call it the improvements that we're going to be making along Route 38 on the side of the, on the north side of 38 with regards to the driveways, eliminations?
Yeah, and I should have touched on that. I apologize, Mr. Chairman. In particular, and I'm going to start from the west here. Right now, we have what's called a near side jug handle. to get on Lawrence Boulevard South, you pull off to the right before that intersection. And it's a relatively small and short near side jug handle that does not allow for a lot of stacking. That is a problem now. DOT has identified that as a problem in the future. As part of the development of this property, and you can see it on the concept plan that's included both in the map pocket and also on page 11. The landowner has had initial discussions at the bottom of page 11. Thanks, Marty. They're actually going to be eliminating that near side jug handle and doing a full far side or reverse jug handle that provides for significantly more stacking and queuing before that light, which will help fix a lot of the traffic issues at that Lawrence Boulevard jug handle. So that's sort of a major improvement there. There will also be, as part of basically a straight Lawrence Boulevard drive extension that goes north into the industrial part of the property. As I touched on before, this driveway gets eliminated that bisects the two Nissan parcels, and this driveway gets relocated to the far eastern portion as a perpendicular drive. So that will come in at a 90-degree angle from Route 38 with a full DOT compliant driveway access. And then there's another driveway access to the Nissan property that will be slightly shifted down. So the number of driveways and access points remain largely the same, but they're reconfigured. They will all be DOT compliant. The landowners will have to come before the Joint Land Use Board for subdivision approval first to effectuate some of the land swaps that are discussed, and sort of simultaneously both apply for site plan approval. As part of that, the DOT approvals will really be reviewed and approved in conjunction with one another, because all of these pieces of the puzzle have to fit together for the whole thing to work. So this will solve a lot of issues. It will facilitate and effectuate the redevelopment plan and the revitalization of that Atlantic Woods site, which also includes remediation of those NJDEP exceedances on the site to allow them to develop. That was the short answer for that.
No, I want everybody to know and understand everything that's taken place. The other thing, if the members of the Joint Land Use recall, when we approved that monstrous warehouse on the southern side of, across the street from this, across the highway from this, there were several members voiced concern relative to the traffic study and the, what's the term, Mr. Taylor, that you used on that jug handle that's there now? You used the term.
Stacking?
Stacking or queuing?
No, stacking, I know. Well, I thought there was another name to it. But in any event, the stacking was the issue. I think we probably said that maximum you could maybe get 4 18-wheelers in there.
Right.
And we were concerned about that, which by moving it now, you could probably get about 12 in there. The other thing, too, it doesn't show up on page 11 here, but we have talked, part of it does show up. If you all take a look on page 11 at the bottom, there's between, see where the 3 HC highway commercial signals are? There's a little square in there, and that's the tower, the microwave tower. And there's a dirt road right now that goes right out to the highway, which is being used, and they shouldn't be using it. So that'll go away, because that tower will be accessed by the road going straight into the complex and towards the warehouse.
Yeah, there will be an internal easement, so they'll use the industrial development driveway system to access that telecommunications tower. And then there's also, and you can see it, I believe it's also on page on bottom of page 11, the HC that is located on the far left, near where the jug handle is, that's actually part of what's known as the Hesser property now, which is in the redevelopment area. That will be zoned highway commercial and will be retained. So with the hopes that that will be marketed and developed as an additional highway commercial piece at some point in the future. So that's not imminently proposed for development now. It'll be retained in the highway commercial district for potential future
That could be
business corridor
in
growth.
addition to the strip mall that's out there now?
Yes.
Smaller one?
Yep. Would sort of be next to the fence company.
Are the two HCs to the right of that you were speaking of? Is that the Nissan property?
No, so the two HCs, the HC in the middle is that fence company,
Oh, okay.
and the HC to the right of that is there's a small strip center out in front, and then there's a sort of a warehouse, small warehouse building to the rear of that. The light blue square to the right of that is the Nissan dealership.
All right, thank you.
Sure.
Anyone in the front row have any questions of Mr. Taylor? Anybody up here on the board have any questions? By the way, excellent presentation as usual, Mr. Taylor.
Thank you.
I'm sure we'll hear more about this later, but I think I read in here somewhere that Nissan has potential plans for either expansion or,
They do. So where it stands at this point is the redevelopment plan now addresses them consolidating their lots to have safe circulation and parking and stacking between the two. They are starting discussions with Nissan corporate to be able to do a significant expansion. That process is considerable and lengthy to go through Nissan corporate to get their approvals for that. So we anticipate that that will happen. It may be in the next 12 to 18 months or so, in which time it may require and likely would require an amendment to this redevelopment plan based on what that building configuration and the parking configuration would be. But it was premature to put that in now until there's real strong feedback from the local Nissan dealer and Nissan corporate.
And if I could just interject one other thing. The Nissan dealership, and somebody correct me if I've got this wrong, was previously a franchise of Hesser.
Yeah, that's right.
But he no longer has it. It's a, for lack of a better word, a corporate store. But Hesser still owns property that's by that jug handle that's going to be reconfigured.
That is correct. Hessert owns a property to the west, formerly owned the Nissan dealership and has sold that to another entity.
I think, aren't they based out of Woodbury or something like that?
Yes, so this owner has another facility in Woodbury.
Any other comments? Mr. Miller, you have any comments or anything?
No.
Excuse me, would someone from the opposite side of the road, the jug handle, be able to cross over and go through to that side?
From Lawrence Boulevard South to come through, I believe so.
Okay, because if I'm remembering correctly on the map that I saw, there were lanes coming with arrows that were coming towards 38, but there seemed to be an extra lane there that didn't have an arrow didn't have an arrow. So I didn't know whether that was going to be, that you could either make a right turn off of 38 into that property from that location, along with, can you go straight across the 38 from Lawrence Boulevard?
Right, so coming out of the industrial site, there are 3 lanes shown. One will be a straight through onto Lawrence Boulevard South or a right-hand turn.
Right?
There is a designated left turn lane, and then the third lane is a through lane, so either going from Lawrence Boulevard north
Okay,
or a right-in off of Route 38 westbound, a right into that industrial complex.
okay, because there was no arrow at all, that's why I was,
Right, so that means that's an unrestricted in, because you can get to it from two different
okay.
places. This is preliminary. There's I don't want to say a chance, but this all is the jurisdiction of the Department of Transportation, New Jersey. So there could be minor changes or shifts once they get into a full review at DOT. This is just sort of conceptually
So
what.
trucks coming from Philadelphia have the option of either turning at the Sonic jug handle or further down at the bypass.
Yeah, so I would expect that they would all use the Lawrence Boulevard jug handle to basically come this way, use the Lawrence Boulevard jug handle, and come straight into the site. That keeps, it's the shortest, quickest route for them to use.
So we're being asked to review all of this and make a recommendation to the Township Committee that we feel that this is in compliance with the master plan and also complies with redevelopment without condemnation.
That it's just simply consistent with the master plan,
Okay.
and recommend adoption of the redevelopment plan.
Mr. Kingsbury, you want to give us how the,
Well, I don't think there's anything I can add to that because that summarizes what the board is charged with. There's a resolution to be adopted tonight saying exactly that the plan is consistent with the master plan, and the board recommends adoption of it by the township governing body. But I know that the Nissan dealership has had a problem with that Atlantic Wood driveway as long as I can remember. And they used to come in here all the time and ask for a waiver of having to go out onto Route 38 to get from one lot to another. They have their dealership on the one lot, one side of the Atlantic Wood, and their inventory on the other side. And Atlantic Wood has allowed them to drive over that driveway, but they wouldn't give them an easement to do it because I think they thought that would potentially diminish the value of their property, and whoever would ultimately buy that property might not want to live with that. So they've sort of allowed them to have an unrecorded verbal easement over the years, but it's always been a problem for the Nissan dealership. So this would help solve that problem.
So Bob, can the mayor and I vote on this? I keep forgetting. Allowed to vote on this? Be a member of the committee?
Yes, you can vote on it, yeah.
now the motion that we're looking for is, with your papers in your package for tonight, that behind the booklet, there's a one-page resolution that we're being asked to approve, which
That's correct.
paragraph number 2 says that the Joint Land Use Board determined and reports to the Township Committee that the Route 38 Mount Holly Bypass redevelopment plan is consistent with the Hainesport Township Master Plan. Joint Land Use recommends adoption of the plan as presented.
I'll offer 2021-04.
Okay, do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, any questions on the motion? Eh, May I? No? Yep.
No question.
Okay. May I have a roll call, please?
Mr. McLaughlin,
Yes?
Mr. McKay,
Yes.
Mayor Gilmore,
Yes.
Mr. Drokoche,
Yes.
Mrs. Baggio,
Yes,
Mrs. Tyndale,
Yes.
Ms. Costco,
Yes.
Mr. Bradley,
Yes.
and Mr. Krollpfeifer.
Yes. Thank you all. Excellent job again, Mr. Taylor.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, next order of business are resolutions. In addition to the one we just passed, we have the resolution for Mr. Cogman's swimming pool that he requested at the last meeting. Need a motion and a second on that resolution.
I'll make a motion, we approve 2021-05.
Second,
Oh, isn't that 02?
05.
2021-05. According to my book.
Yeah, 05.
Yeah.
That's right.
Okay.
I'll
Okay, any
second.
questions on the motion? May I have a roll call, please?
Mr. McLaughlin,
Yes?
Mrs. Baggio.
Yes.
Mayor Gilmore,
Yes.
Mr. McKay,
Yes.
Mr. Takochi,
Yes.
Ms. Tyndall,
Yes.
Ms. Casco,
Yes.
and Mr. Krollpfeifer.
Yes. We have several items of correspondence.
Excuse me, Mr. Krollpfeifer, can we go back to the minutes?
Huh?
The minutes?
Yeah, that's right.
Come on, I always do this.
We can do that in one vote, too.
I'm too anxious to
different
get
ones.
finished with everything. Okay, we have the minutes of the last meeting, January, the reorganization meeting,
Do it together.
and we can do them both together. So we need a motion to approve those.
I'll make a
Minutes.
motion, we approve the reorg meeting minutes of January 6th and the regular meeting minutes of January 6th.
I'll second.
Okay, questions on the motion, and I do have a question, and I don't mean to embarrass, I forgot to catch you before. If you could take a look at the reorganization meeting, one, it says that meeting was called to order at 6 PM, or 7 PM,
I know, I already caught that.
and it ends at 7, I thought, okay, and it ends at 7, okay, so it was, okay, sorry.
Quick meeting,
Pardon?
quick meeting, right?
Yeah.
I got 6:30.
Real quick.
So we have a motion.
And we have a motion and a second. May I have a roll call, please?
Mr. McLaughlin?
Yes.
Mrs. Baggio?
Yes.
Mayor Gilmore?
Yes.
Mr. McKay?
Yes.
Mr. Takochi?
Yes.
Ms. Tyndall?
Yes.
Ms. Casco?
Yes.
Mr. Bradley?
Yes.
And Mr. Krollpfeifer.
Yes. Now we have the
This one, no, it's
correspondence. There are 7 items of correspondence. I need a motion and a second for the correspondence.
I'll make a motion, we receive and file correspondence.
Was that a second?
No, I'll second.
Okay. All right, may I have a roll call, please?
Mr. McLaughlin?
Yes.
Ms. Casco?
Yes.
Mayor Gilmore?
Yes.
Mr. McKay?
Yes.
Mr. Takochi? Mrs. Baggio?
Yes.
Ms. Tyndall?
Yes.
Mr. Bradley?
Yes.
And Mr. Krollpfeifer.
Yes. Professional comments. Mr. Miller? No. Mr. Taylor, you said enough. No, I'm just kidding. You have any
More
other-
than enough. Thanks. I'm good.
Kingsbury? Okay, board comments. I'll take folks in front of the dais first, if you have any comments.
No, nothing here.
No?
Jill.
Any comments from up here? Okay, any public comments? From the mass crowd out there?
Mr. Goldberger,
Pardon?
what about Resolution 2? 2021-02.
Yeah, that was, that was the one I was asking a question about. I have that
02
one.
and 04.
No, I
No, no,
had,
that's not
And then-
O2, that's just 2. That's from the Township Committee.
That's the township.
that's
Oh,
the
no,
ordinance.
That's
Yeah.
the Township
Oh,
ordinance.
two of some, that's where I got mixed up too.
Okay.
All right.
Okay.
Any other?
be online for.
No public comments, so we'll close them. And we are now at that lovely time, adjournment.
Make
A motion?
Sure.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you, we're done.
Thank
Not
you.
bad.